And so she's like, no, look at the screen. Do you see these two little flickers? They're flickering like this, like next to each other. She goes, These are definitely two babies in there." I was like, okay, are they conjoined or something? Because she seemed concerned. And she goes,
Hello, and welcome to the Twin Mom Life Podcast. I'm your host, Jess. I created this podcast to help build community, connection, and most importantly, friendships among moms of multiples. Being a twin mom can be amazing and magical. That twin bond is unlike anything I've ever witnessed. But it can also be isolating and overwhelming. I'll be chatting with other twin moms, diving deep into the twin experience, giving advice on what works for us so you don't have to learn the hard way. Juggling two babies at the same time is challenging, but I'm confident we can learn from each other and figure out how to raise these babies together. I'm super excited to share I've partnered with Twin Z Pillow to give away a free Twin Z Pillow. To enter the giveaway, just follow us on Instagram at twin_Z_pillow and at Twin Mom Life Podcast and see my post about the giveaway for more details. Must be in the US to enter. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
"Thank you for having me."
I'm so excited to have you. So today we have Lex. Can you tell us more about yourself?
Yes, I am Lex Ginger online. I am an attorney in Tampa, Florida. I'm the mom to mono twins. The different themes I cover on my Instagram page are twin related stuff, twin facts, twin parenting. I cover a lot of legal stuff. And then I also cover health related issues, so to speak, particularly related to my pods and my factor five.
Awesome. And I can't wait to dive into all of that. We were just talking about, I'm not even sure how I discovered your page because we have so many weird things in common. So I also have identical boy twins and I have factor five Leiden. And we found this silly thing that we have in common. So we both did cheerleading our whole lives and then decided to do 1 year of college rugby.
Why not? But it's yeah, we have very niche things in common, I would say, for sure.
And I didn't say this earlier, but all three of my children have red hair.
No way.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm
Isn't that
jealous.
wild?
It's amazing. Does your husband have red hair?
No, so my great-grandmother had red hair and his great-grandfather had red hair, and then just like all of our children.
It's amazing. Do they have auburn like me, or is it more of a bright?
Yes, it's pretty auburn. I would say it's changed so much, like, when my daughter was born, it was black, like jet black,
No way.
and then it all Yes, it was wild, I'll show you her newborn photos. We were like, "Oh, like, she has dark features like me." And then around, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months, it all fell out, and then it was, like, carrot ginger, and I was like, "Whose kid is this?" And then it's pretty auburn now.
I started off carrot top, orange. And then
Really?
and then as I got older, like middle school, high school, it like auburned out. And then my boys have almost like dirty blonde, strawberry blonde, but one of my sons, Max, has this patch of red, fiery hair on the back of his head. It is the cutest
Really?
thing. Yes, and only one of them. And I know they're identical, but identical twins have that little bit percent where they're actually not identical, that like 0.00 whatever it is. And his all came out in this like little red patch on the back. I'm obsessed with it.
That's so cool. I wonder if it's like a birthmark type of thing?
It's crazy because normally when you get people that have the different color patches, it's always that like blonde or that white blonde that
Hmm.
lacks pigment, but his is just this, like, fiery red patch on the back. He started developing this red patch when he was, like, 2.5, like your boy's age is right now, and it was just the cutest thing. I'm obsessed with it, and I made this is gonna sound really bizarre, but I'm actually wearing it right now. This is actually so weird. Wait, I'm showing right now a pendant I made of my twins' hair. I, like, made it into, like, a little knot, and then I used the red head patch from one and the blonde from the other, and I made a little hair patch. I also forgot to mention in my opening, I am Latina, and this is very Latina of me to be doing this. So, I wear it there.
I feel like you just posted, was it like a Venn diagram? And it was like, what do parents, witches
Serial killers
I was dying.
have in common, collecting teeth and hair. And I also shipped out one of my sons lost his teeth, and I shipped it out to be dipped in gold. I mean, I'm fully into it. I'm fully into it. Max's tooth is wiggly right now, and he's, like, excited because he's like, "I'm gonna have an addition for your necklace." I'm like, because of course your kids never understand the weird things you do until they're older and like, "Wow, my mom was pretty weird."
Okay, so I have 2 things on that. So I absolutely have, like, lock of my daughter's hair. I have not turned it
Mhm.
into a necklace, but now I'm considering that. I did, though, turn my breast milk into a pearl.
Yes. I love that. I wish I had known that at the time. I only with the twins, I could only breastfeed for, like, a month. They were in the NICU for 30 days, and I think I just didn't have that connection. I was constantly on the pump. It was insane. And then I think at the
It's so
30-day
hard.
mark it's so hard. At the 30-day mark, I was literally pumping day and night. I think I started going into, like, breast pump psychosis. I was getting, like, really depressed about it and eventually my husband, like, grabbed the machine from me and he's like, "You're done. Enough. We're not doing this anymore. Like, you're killing yourself for nothing." And I'm like, "Okay." And, like, I when he says, like, it's time, he's, like, the most patient, calm person. I'm like, "It's probably time. I'm losing my mind." But I only lasted 30 days, and I didn't think to, like, save some. That would've been so cute.
Well, my mom saved my braces,
Shut up.
and
It's
I
so
swear.
funny.
And you know what? It's hilarious, but also I found out how expensive they are, and I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I would save them too."
No, and now I have these adult braces for this year. I'm, like, 7 months into the year, so I totally understand that. Maybe I'll keep these ones in a drawer somewhere
Yeah, there you go. Just for the memories, the keepsake.
for the mems.
So we're already diving in, but before we get further in, I would love to know how you filled your cup today.
That's such a good question. Okay, how did I fill my cup today? Hmm, because of my POTS, I'm not really supposed to have any caffeine. I'm not really supposed to have any decaf, but I was a naughty girl, and around lunchtime, I got 7 brew decaf coffee with a sugar-free cookie butter, and that's how I filled my cup today.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
So good.
Mm. I have not filled my cup yet today, but on Friday nights, me and my husband always try to have an at-home date. So we have like a nice meal that we make after the kids go to bed. So we'll have like a glass of wine and try to do something fancy like a steak or something. So that will be fun later after the kids go to bed.
That's so nice. You have to do that. Like, you have to have those little date nights without the kids around. I
Yeah,
love doing that. Yes, yes, agreed. That's gonna be so fun. Do you guys watch TV at all while you're doing the date night?
we do. We'll try to pick like a fun movie or a series or something. I feel like we're not really watching anything right now. So, do you have anything we should watch tonight?
Well, I have not shut up about heated rivalry, that's for sure. I feel like I talk about it on my Instagram every other day. So heated rivalry, but I also heard that the His and Hers show on Netflix right now is really good, and I was thinking about starting that tonight with Pat.
Oh, yeah, I haven't seen that either, but I've seen that on Netflix.
Yeah, I think it might have, like, a mystery element to it or, like, a whodunit type thing. So I think that would be, like, good for date night.
Oh,
You could, like,
fun.
cuddle up and yeah, that's my recommendation, even though I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Okay, so earlier when you were saying that you had coffee, but you're not supposed to have caffeine, you brought up
Mhm.
POTS. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure. And it's actually related to my twin pregnancy.
Okay, great.
I have postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or it's easier to say POTS. And essentially what it means is that when I go from sitting to standing, to laying down, my blood pressure plummets and then my heart rate goes up. Drinking caffeine makes it worse because it makes your heart race. I had these symptoms when I was pregnant. And I brought up the concerns to my doctors, and they're like, sometimes this happens to pregnant women. They have vagal responses where they're going to feel like they're going to pass out. And especially because the twins, you're getting a lot of like the blood volumes going up a lot. But like once you're done having them, once they're out, it should be better. I got the first nosebleed of my life when I was pregnant with twins. It was so bizarre. I mean, it was, I don't know, you remember just even waddling down the hallway because I had mono twins. We can get into that too if you want, but I was hospitalized for 2 months. So I would just waddle down the little hallway and, like, would get nosebleeds. I mean, it was crazy. Then I had the boys, but that never really went away. These like weird, almost fainting spells. And for about
Mm,
2 years, I would get one very randomly. And so doctors would say, "Oh, you're just a tired twin mom. You're a new mom, you have twins, you're exhausted, try to sleep better." And then in 2023, it got so bad that I felt like I couldn't even work. 80% of
mm.
people with POTS have struggles like going to work and having normal schedule. I don't know what the rate of people on unemployment are on POTS. It's only 20%, I think. I'd have to fact check. I've done videos of this before, but it's very disabling because you feel like very weak and you feel like, "Oh my god, I'm going to pass out," and you don't know why, especially before you're diagnosed. So I was like, "Okay, enough's enough. Something is so not right with me." I booked gastro because it also gives you tummy problems. So I booked gastro,
Mm.
cardiologist, and immunologist. And I was like, "There's something amiss with one of these doctors can tell me what's up." I went to the cardiologist first, and I told her what was wrong with me. It started when I was pregnant, and she right away she's like, "Oh, you have POTS. You have POTS. You definitely have POTS." And I was like, "What's that?" She explained the whole thing to me. You do something called a tilt table test where they lay you flat and then they just kind of lift you up slowly. And then you stand there for what's supposed to be 60 minutes and to see if your blood pressure changes, if your heart rate goes up. I remember her telling me that and me being like, "That's going to be the most boring hour of my life. Can I bring a podcast?" Like, nothing's going to happen. I get up out of bed every day because I wasn't connecting the dots, right? Not fully. I did the tilt table test. They strap you into this thing. They slowly lift you up. This is not like scary. They slowly lift you up. Within the first 10 seconds, I thought I was going to throw up all over myself. My heart rate went through the roof. My blood pressure plummeted. They almost had to run in and give me like emergency stuff. They have you with an IV just in case because I literally almost
Oh
passed
my
out right then and
gosh.
there. And they were like, "Put her back down. We don't need any more." I was upright for one less than a minute. They're like, "Put her back down. Like we have it. She has POTS. Put her down." And that started that journey. And so it was crazy. And what's funny is that all those times I was feeling bad, I was like, I just need a little coffee to perk me up, which was making it worse. So things that help POTS are actually lots of salt. So I take salt tablets every day as no caffeine, or some people say decaf is fine, but I try to do no caffeine. Lots of water intake with hydration. Those little hydrate IV packets, but not the sugar-free. The sugar actually helps the salt transport itself quicker into your body. 2, 3 years now with this knowledge, I would say I've gotten my episodes down from multiple times a day to maybe once a month, maybe every 2 to 3 months.
That's great. So it's pretty manageable.
Pretty manageable now. Definitely things can trigger it, and sometimes I do feel that kind of like, feeling, but honestly, just even
Mhm.
knowing what it is and knowing, like, I'm not just dying, like, what's happening to me, that in itself helps a lot because it's really scary feeling at first. The big episodes look like I have tons of tummy problems, I'm having to lay down, I'm having to take a Zofran, I get shaky, almost like an adrenaline rush, and I can't do anything for hours. Now I have something like that maybe twice a year. Maybe. Bad like that. So, it's gotten so much better, thank the Lord. It has gotten so much better. With POTS comes all kinds of other comorbidities. So, I've now discovered I have gastroparesis, which I don't digest food as quick, and I've had vocal cord dysfunction my whole life, and they think I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which causes all this stuff like POTS and all this stuff, and that my pregnancy most likely triggered it. So yay. That's why I'm like, I can't do pregnancy again. I just physically cannot do it again. The twins took me for a ride.
My gosh. My twin pregnancy was maybe the hardest thing that I've ever physically done. And it's a long time. I mean, I think especially the last, few months, I think I cried every day because I was in so much pain.
Mhm.
So if I had my boys first, then we would have been done. And we are absolutely done. I scheduled my husband's vasectomy when I was pregnant.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I'm
Not
never
doing this
doing this
again.
again. I can literally never do it again. So I completely understand that.
I know we both have factor V, which is a blood clotting disorder. I didn't discover it until actually after I had my boys.
Really?
Yes. I got very lucky that I didn't have a blood clot. Did you know it during your pregnancy, and did you then have to do the special shots for it?
Yeah. Okay. So before my daughter, I had 2 miscarriages and they were back to back. And we couldn't figure out what was
Mhm.
going on. And my doctor did testing, like, tons of tests. And I came up positive for having factor five, which was so interesting because then it's like, okay, well, that's genetic. So let's get tested and see who else in your family has it. And my mom has it. And luckily, my mom stopped smoking. But growing up, my mom smoked.
Wow,
And I'm just isn't that crazy? So I'm just so
crazy.
thankful that nothing ever happened with her. So,
Mhm.
yes, anyways, so I did have to be on Lovenox, which is an injectable blood thinner during both pregnancies and then 6 weeks postpartum. So now I'm just on like a daily aspirin, but that's it.
Yeah. Same, same. I discovered it funnily enough. I got lucky. The amount of luck I've had is outstanding. I also have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. I know a lot of ladies have it, and something they say it's very difficult to get pregnant with PCOS because you don't have regular periods and your ovaries are covered with cysts. So I was told my whole life it's going to be very difficult for you to have children. We just got lucky, and the first time we tried, pregnant with the twins. First time.
That's wild.
And then now knowing that I have factor 5 on top of the PCOS, pure luck. Because something that's common
Yeah.
for factor 5 is also like stillbirth. Not only miscarriages, it will attack, early pregnancy, but it can also cause delayed stillbirth. And it's very dangerous. So I am just very lucky. And that's another thing I'm like, I can't do pregnancy again. I just got so lucky. And so I think it was during COVID, I'd already had the boys. I was bored and I got a 23andMe genetic
Oh,
test.
yeah.
And it came up for something called factor 5 Leiden. I didn't think anything about it. I was like, oh, blood clots, what's that? Didn't think two things about it. Months later, I was randomly filling out a surgical form or something, and it asked me about factor five. I was like, "Oh yeah, I think I have that." My doctor's like, "What do you mean?" And so they send me to get a hematologist because they think like, it's 23andMe. Like how, like you've never had a miscarriage, you've had a successful pregnancy that didn't end in blood clots, you were in a hospital bed for 2 months. No way do you have factor five. And I was like, "Oh." They sent me to the hematologist, had the blood work done, and there you go. I have factor 5 and I take a baby aspirin every day. I My mom has it. What's funny
Mm,
is my mom
okay.
my mom is my mom is very boheme in nature with a lot of things medically related, especially now kind of in her older age. She was like, "Oh, I don't know." I call her sister, who's very straight to the point, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, honey, we all have factor 5." She's like, "I've had a blood clot, your other aunts had a blood clot, your grandpa had blood clots. We're all having."
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
I was like, "Gosh, Lord." My mom is the best, but she's very think of like hippie boheme kind of like she's a character in herself. So I was like, "Mom, you have something called factor 5." And she's like, "Do you think?" And I'm like, "I know. I've never been so certain of anything in actually my entire life. I'm positive." Um, so it's just funny how things unravel themselves. But yeah, twin pregnancy it's tough. Less to have
Yeah.
the boys, but it's tough.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us more about that. So you got pregnant first time. That's awesome.
First time. I was so because, my whole life I was told you have PCOS. We were literally thinking, okay, we're gonna try this 1 month. And I hadn't passed the bar yet. I had just graduated law school a couple months before. We're like, we're gonna try this 1 month and then we're just gonna give it a year because at the time I was still 26. I was like, we're gonna kind of give it a year for you to do bar prep and stuff. And if it doesn't happen this month, we're gonna like try in a year from now. Most likely we're gonna have to do IVF, but we'll give it this one try, one try. I was like in between a vacation, like it was crazy. I get pregnant. I'm so convinced I'm not pregnant. I peed on the stick and left it on my counter for like the whole day. I didn't even go and look at it. Because you're just convinced there's no way. And so I pee on the stick, put it down, go about my business, come back in the afternoon. And I'm like, oh yeah, that thing, like that pregnancy test. I look at it and it's electric. So it says pregnant. And I was like, I was so elated. Like, my first reaction is just, I am so excited, because I was like, I can't believe it. And I'm just like over the moon. I call my best friend, and I tell her right away. At the time, I was like, I'm going to wait a couple days and do something cute for my husband. And so we had already done our Christmas card photos with our puppies. And I told him that I wanted to do a New Year's Eve photo. like I made something up. I was like, let's do New Year's Eve photo. I'm gonna have you hold the sign that says like Happy New Year's. And my sign is gonna say like love Lex and Pat. But my sign said, we're pregnant, exclamation point.
That's so cute.
We had him look at the sign, and at first he wasn't like looking at the sign because I had told him it said, love Lex Pack. I'm like, look at the sign. And he was like, and he just freaked out. And what's funny is I think things were different pre-COVID too. So they got me in a lot easier in general. So like right away I had, peed on the stick and they were like, hey, come in and do a blood test right away. And I'm probably like, I'm less than a month pregnant because I did the like early detection pregnancy test. They had me come in
Mhm.
right away to do the blood work to see if my HCG levels were, you know, tracking as normal. And they were like, so something kind of strange is happening. You're doubling and now tripling and then quadrupling. And I was like,
Same.
is that bad? And they're like, no, not necessarily. Like they probably already kind of had like some suspicions then. And I remember telling my husband like that. And he goes, wouldn't it be funny if it was twins? Just like he says it out of the blue. And I'm like, that's not, there's no, identical twins is not genetic. So there's no identical twins in our family. And there's no twins in our family, even fraternal. And so I was like, ha ha ha. And I remember like drinking the soup. I'm like, yeah, very funny. We went in for a 6-week scan and they saw one baby on the monitor. And, normally at 6 weeks, if you have twins, you're seeing two. You're seeing two heartbeats or at least two different sacs. You see the two, circles. And there was just one circle. And I remember the doctor who was older, he was like 75. And he goes, I have never heard a baby with such a strong heartbeat before. He was like, do you mind if I bring in
Mhm.
people to come listen to this strong heartbeat? I was like, sure, why not? It's because the twins were on top of each other. It was two heartbeats that were just like happy beating around the same time. And it sounded really loud. And so
So
that
did you not
happened.
know it was twins? So you
No.
didn't know at your
Mm-mm. At my scan, no, they look like one. Very common for mono twins. And then, they set up their
Oh,
next scan. Is
interesting.
very common. So they're going to set up their next scan for 12 weeks. But at 7 weeks, I was hit with the worst. I wish they wouldn't call it morning sickness. Okay. Because it was all day, all day. I end up having hyperemesis, is what I end up having. It feels
I'm
like
sorry.
thank you. I'm not a drinker, but I have drank before. It feels like the worst hangover of your entire life
Mhm.
times 10. I sat in
Mhm.
a dark room for I mean, it was I could hardly brush my teeth. I couldn't smell any foods. It was like, I remember it was meat. I was like, I'm gonna be sick. So at a week, it was so bad that my doctor was like, hey, just come in so we can check you out. I walk in the door. I remember I had a red solo cup of ginger ale because that's like all I could consume with like sunglasses on. And they're like, you look so bad. Do you mind if the doctor just gives a little scan to make sure everything's okay? Like you're here, might as well. And again, this is pre-COVID. So I feel like it was just a lot more lax in general. There weren't crazy schedules at the time where it wasn't hard to get into medical staff. The city I'm from, Tampa, also blew up during COVID. So we've had an influx of people move in around here. So it's so hard to get
Mm.
appointments in general now. Anyway, it was a doctor. She was amazing. It was a doctor who did the ultrasound herself. It wasn't an ultrasound tech. It was the doctor herself. She's looking around and she's looking around for a while. And she looks at the screen and then she looks at me and she goes, do you know you're having twins? But she doesn't say it in like a happy way or an excited way.
Mm.
I also had left my phone in the car. I only had like my Apple Watch. And she didn't say it in an excited way. And I go, no, I'm not. I was just here last week. And I was just here last week. It was one. And they don't multiply like that. I know that. I knew enough about twins. I'm like, they don't multiply like that. So there's just one. And she was like, no, there's two. And I remember I like go, I'm 26. I know it's one. Like I was just thinking like this crazy feeling. And so she's like, no,
Mhm.
look at the screen. Do you see these two little flickers? They're flickering like this, like next to each other. She goes, these are definitely two babies in there. I was like, okay, are they conjoined or something? Because she seemed concerned. And she goes, they might be, just like
Stop.
that. And she goes, I'm going to call in our ultrasound tech in. This is an absolute emergency. Can you just wait? I want to have the tech in here with me as well.
Oh, and
At
you
this
were
point,
alone. Your husband is
alone.
not with you.
No, mind you, Pat had begged me to come with me that morning, right? Because I had this, really bad hyperemesis, but our OB/GYN is literally across the street from like a neighborhood street, like from our house. And Pat had court that morning because he's an attorney too. I said, "Baby, you do not have to miss work. I'm just going to go and they're probably going to give me, at the time it was diclegis, was for the morning sickness. They're just going to give me a diclegis prescription. You just saw the baby last week. Didn't even think I was going in for a scan. So I was like, I'm not going to have you miss court like at the 11th hour. I got this." And he was like, "Okay, babe, just let me know. I'll keep my phone on me." My stupid Apple Watch. I have when it has the service when you're away from the phone, but you're in like a medical building and you get no service in a medical building. I was on this thing like flipping out. This other nurse is like holding my hand. I'm start crying because and I'm not much of a crier, although ever since I had the twins, I am a crier. But before that, I was not a crier. And I was just absolutely gobsmacked. She comes in with this emergency tech who's like been there forever. And they're looking and looking and looking. And they're like, okay, there's definitely two in there. They may be conjoined, but at this point, and you remember it's 7 weeks, that's very early days. And so they're
Mhm.
like, but at this point, we can see that their blood flows look separate, which is good. Because if they were conjoined, some of their blood flows would look more connected.
I see. Okay.
Yes. So they're like, that's good news. So most likely there's something called monoamniotic monochorionic twins. Most twins are diamniotic dichorionic, which means two placentas and two sacs, which was your boys. Back in the day, before we had good DNA genetic testing, it used to be that di twins were thought of to be always fraternal. Mary Kate and Ashley are di twins, and so they were told from a young age, "Oh, you're fraternal." Everyone knows they're identical twins. So they're. I think it's either 30% of all di twins are identical, or it's 10% of all di twins are identical.
I think it might be I think it's 10%. I think it's lower because I
It's
know that
lower.
having di twins that are identical is, like, a little bit more rare. Not as
Mhm.
rare as having
No, but I
Momo twins.
I think it's 10%. I wanna say, but
Mhm, that
don't
sounds
quote
right.
me on that, folks. Look it up because I'm a little rusty on my numbers. Where now we know di does not necessarily mean fraternal. Then you have something
Mhm.
called modi twins, which is one placenta and two sacs, and that is always identical twins. And that is a little bit more rare than di twins, but not rare. You get most identical twins are modi twins.
So I will say, and I said this earlier, you are so amazing at explaining the 3 different types of twins. You explain it better than most medical professionals. So when I had my ultrasound with the boys, it was also early. It was at 6 weeks. They are di. I was told they were fraternal. They're only 2 years old. So it's like technicians should know nowadays that that is not the case. So I love your videos because you are so clear on explaining the different types of twins. So you're awesome.
No, thank you, and I'm not a medical professional, but I was just a twin mom with a lot of free time who was also very confused about the science behind it and wanted to simplify it for folks online, and I hope I've done that, and I think I have, so thank you,
You
that's so
have,
sweet to
yeah.
hear. Thank you, thank you. So you have Modi twins that are at risk for something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. A good percentage of them do have it, so they're highly monitored, but they usually go to a normal due date. They're kept kind of pretty safe in their different sacs. Now, you have something called amniotic monochorionic twins, which is what I had, where you have one placenta and they're in the same sac together. All conjoined twins are mono twins, but most mono twins are
Mm,
not conjoined.
okay.
So if you have a conjoinment twin, it does start from the mono because they are in the same
Got it.
sac together and they have a delayed split and they fuse. What makes
Mhm.
mono twins so dangerous is because they are in the same sac together. It's not necessarily that they're sharing the same nutrients from the one placenta, because as we know, the modis also share the one placenta. It's actually just the fact they are in the same sac together. Their cords
Mhm.
can tangle each other. That is the greatest fear. The cords can tangle and then they'll lose any kind of flow. 50% of mono twins will not make it past 12 weeks.
Mm,
70% of those will then make it to viability, which is 24 to 25 weeks. And even if you're hospitalized, you have a mandatory C-section between 32 to 34 weeks, and you still get like, gosh, I think it's still 6 to 7% chance of losing at least one of the twins, even once you are inpatient in the hospital. Very, very, very stressful. So the doctor, we'll bring it back to the doctor. She was like, no, this is something called monomonotons. I also say it's very rare. It's one in the science behind it is so you'll hear sometimes it's one in 10,000 twin pregnancies. Sometimes you hear it's one in 60,000 twin pregnancies. I know it's between 50 and 300 women in the United States will have this pregnancy a year. So it's a pretty small
wow.
club. Yes, pretty small club. So I asked my doctor because I knew nothing about this. And I was like, oh, well, have you had monomonotons before? She goes, I've never seen this in my practice, in my life. I've never
Oh,
seen this.
wow. I knew they were rare, I guess I just wasn't expecting that, and then I
Mhm.
do wanna hear too, so you're trying to contact Pat. So what
Yes.
happened?
I can't get a hold of him. So I get this crazy news. And then I say, like, what can I do? What can I do? What are my next steps that I can? And she goes, honey, there's nothing you can do. She goes, and she was one of those
Mm,
people that's very stoic. She goes, there's nothing you can do. There's a 50% chance you're not going to make it to 12 weeks. She goes, I want you to come in once a week and we're going to do demise checks weekly to see if they're alive or not on a week to week basis.
I hate I
Uh,
hate that they're called that.
I know it's horrible. But also very kind of her because she could have said, come back at 12 weeks, we'll check then. So she
Yeah,
said,
sure.
a very stoic woman who I do not think was a hugger was like, do you mind if I give you a hug? I think that made it worse because then I was like, it's bad then. Then it's bad. And so she gives me this hug. And I remember I went in, I made it to the 12 weeks, and then I make it to 14 weeks where I get put into an MFM group. There's only one hospital in this entire area that's even willing to take mono twins. Not even our women's hospital in town would take me. So I had to switch to a completely
Oh,
different OBGYN group at 14 weeks. And no, at 18 weeks, I think I had to. Because I think this is going to sound so morbid. I just think they didn't think they were going to make it. I feel like I met
mm,
2 or 3 professionals on the way to 18 weeks that they're like, I would ask, have you ever seen a mono twin set? Most would say no. I think I had 1 or 2 that said yes. And I said, did they survive? And the answer was always no. Granted, I was asking the question. Yeah.
never had a mom of Momo twins on the podcast. There's been Mo Die and Die Die,
Mhm.
but I've never talked to a Momo mom. So,
It was like
ugh,
every day you wake up and you think, "Are they alive today or not?" That is just a thought that goes across
mm,
your head, and the whole goal in your mind is, "I gotta make it to" me was 25 weeks, and then I'll go inpatient. That is a whole 'nother box that opens up because, initially, they wanted to monitor me for 20 minutes at a time, which was not gonna be you think, "Oh, 20 minutes 3 times a day." 20 minutes straight of a NST of a 25-week baby is almost impossible, let alone 2 babies. I would be on the monitor half the day in the initial. By the end, I was 2 hours on, 2 hours off, with, like I think I would do but it got to a point where I was like, "Put me on if I'm laying down, put me on this monitor," because when I was inpatient, there was a girl because got very close on there's a mono twin support group on Facebook. There was one
mm.
other twin set in Pennsylvania that was hospitalized at the same time as me, and she lost one of her twins, and we were the same gestational age. And I said, "Put me on those monitors as much as you can." But it got to a point where it plays with your mind because, okay, so you get hospitalized 24 to 25 weeks. You're attempting to make it for me 32 weeks for a C-section. All of the research is so slim on mono twins. They will sometimes use 10 cases up to 300 cases over a span of 20 years, so they just can't find us. I actually was a part of a
Mhm.
Momo twin study. They came to my hospital room,
Wow.
they're like, because it's also a research hospital, and my very first appointment before I was ever hospitalized, I walk out and there's like 3 people in lab coats, like, "Can we talk to you?" And I was like, what about? They were like, well, we had this study. Do you mind? Like, we're just observing. And I'm like, okay, it'll help science.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome.
the scientists, but I remember putting up a little poll on the Momo Twin support group, and I had about 200 women respond, which is actually pretty good for the science. I was like, if you had an uncomplicated mono twin case, other than the fact they're mono, once you were inpatient, did you make it to your planned C-section date? 50% said they did not make it to their planned C-section date. Most
Wow.
had an emergency C-section at 26 weeks, 27 weeks, 28 weeks because they tangle like crazy in there. And when I made it to 32, I got again, luck was on my side. I made it to 32, and when they took out those boys, they were so tangled that my surgeon, who is an angel on earth, is like, "I don't know how they wouldn't have lasted not one more day."
Oh my gosh, that's wild. Well,
Chills.
I can't even imagine. So, I obviously had a singleton first, and I remember when I had her vaginally, and when I pushed her out, the doctor told me to stop, and I was like, okay." So I'm like, "How do you stop pushing? I don't know." So he's like, "The cord is wrapped around her neck," and he was able to
Mm,
fix it. But that's just one
thank goodness.
baby. Like, I can't even imagine 2 babies in the same sack and how, yeah, like, intertwined that they get. Okay, so tell us more about that. What
I was hos
gestation?
I was hospitalized at 25 weeks. And then I had a planned C-section date at 32 weeks, so I was there for, like, a little under 2 months, but I ended up staying an extra week anyway because I lost too much blood, I needed blood transfusions, the whole get up and get go, so
Mm,
I was ended up being there a
mhm.
solid 2 months. The boys, they warned me, they said, "They're gonna come out and they're probably not gonna be screaming. I just wanna let you know because 'cause they're so young," you know? They came out screaming, both of them. And APGAR score is 9 out of 10, pink as could be, healthy boys. They were in the NICU for 30 days as grower feeders. I think one was on oxygen for like an hour, but that's it. And then they were just room air. And they did great. My Bubbas did great. I've had an awesome all female team in the room. We listened to Disney classics. So I remember I was like, I'm gonna go classy and listen to piano. And then the morning of, I was like, this is gonna sound morbid, but I was like, I can't die to classic 90s Disney. Like, it's too perky. And so I was like, "We're going with that." And then because it's classic Disney, everyone knew the words. It's like, we're playing Mulan, we're playing Lion King, like, no one's dying to that. And so I was like, "Let's play the show tunes." We had the best I had the best C-section experience, and then it was just so rewarding because I got to know these people after a span of 2 months, and I remember I had gotten really close to one of the residents, and her name was Dr. Katie, and she was a night shift and my scheduled C-section was in the morning. And she goes, "I'm so sorry, but I'm not gonna be able to be there because," and I remember telling her the night before, I'm like, "I'm just so scared, this is so big. And like, what if something happens even tonight? Your every day was just so scary." And I remember she's like, "I know, I wish I could be there, but she can't." And I remember I was in the C-section prep. And at first, they don't let your husband in while they're doing who knows what. And everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm with her up, I'm with her up." I was like, "Am I dying?" And I just felt someone grab my hand and I look over and she always wore black nail polish. And I look over and Dr. Katie is there with her black nail polish. She's like, "It's Dr. Katie. I'm right here. You're the most alive person in this room. Your vitals look
Mm.
great." She helped me throw up in a little bag. She's like, "I've got you." She got special dispensation to just be in the room. It's so sweet.
Oh, that's gonna make me cry. That's so
No, I
sweet.
cry every time. She was incredible. While I was there, I found out I passed the bar. I had taken the Florida bar while I was pregnant with the boys. I hardly studied for this one. I was so sick. And I remember crying on the way there. I go, "Honey, don't make me go." I was like, he goes, "Babe, I don't care if you just sit there and just bubble." Or he goes, "But you'll feel good just to have sat there." And pregnant women get special dispensation during the bar. So I could bring like croissant and water. Like normally you're not allowed those things. I'm like, fine, but I'm not trying because I'm so sick. But like I'm very type A. Had studied a lot. I was, like, trying my hardest. And after the 2 days, I remember the second day, 'cause the 2-day exam, he brought me to hibachi. I was just crying at hibachi. I'm pregnant, I'm sad. I was like, "I failed. What was the point?" I found that I passed while I was inpatient on the monitors, and I set off my heart monitors. I had the emergency team run in because they thought, like, I was having an episode, and I was like, "I passed the bar of maternity," and, like, the whole room got crazy. And then I was in the hospital, I wasn't gonna be able to go get inducted into the Florida bar, but you can have someone come to you to do it. And, they told me that they were just gonna have this little thing, someone was gonna come, and it was just me and them. And I walk into this, like, I thought we were gonna do my room. They're like, "Oh, no, go to this conference room." They did a whole surprise party with me with some of the doctors and the nurses and my family, and it was like this whole thing, and I became what they think is the first person to be inducted into a legal bar in the United States, like, in a maternity ward. Because like, who the heck does who the heck does that? So it was like that was like it was a really fun thing, but what's funny if you watch the video, no one wanted to surprise me, like, truly, because I'm pregnant. So when I open the door, you just hear, "Surprise." So, because no one wanted to, like, spook me, because I'm so pregnant. So I say the boys, I had 3 brains taking that exam, and that's why I passed. But yeah, it was a really fascinating time, and I'm just so happy the boys are here and they're healthy. They ended up, and we don't have to get into this part, but I somewhat touch upon it on social media. They had later on febrile seizure disorders, which 1 out of 4 children
Mm,
will get. Very scary. And one of them had a really bad episode, and they ended up having to be in the hospital for quite a bit. And
mm,
they believe that some of it was because he was premature and had underdeveloped lungs. So when he had the seizure,
okay.
he was overcompensating. So I kind of just say that because prematurity isn't something that is just in that very small window of, their first month of life. Sometimes it'll even carry into their toddler years, and so that's just something you're, always kind of aware of. They had their first seizure.
Mhm,
They both had, because 'cause they're twins, they're identical twins. If one has something, the other one will have one eventually. And one of our twins was having these febrile seizures pretty regularly. Once every 3 months, he had his first
mm,
one right before he turned 2, and then he had them for 6 months, and I remember the one that didn't have one, I was like, "He's our, the chunky baby," and he's the one that had one seizure that was horrible, horrible, and he couldn't
mm.
get out of it. Thank God I had called the ambulance immediately, thank goodness, and we live across the street from a
Oh,
hospital, and
man.
so they were able to tend to him very quickly, but that's a whole 'nother, ball of wax, potentially from the prematurity aspect. But now they're 6, they're on anti-seizure medications. They will be probably until they're 9, but they're never had a seizure again, strong, healthy,
Mm,
hilarious, big voice. So it's not slowed them down. But yeah, mono twin journey is not for the faint of heart, but also very rewarding in a lot of ways, not only for the fact that you brought life in, but just for what the moms have to go through medically, so being a
mhm.
every twin
Yeah.
pregnancy is difficult. Every twin pregnancy is difficult. But anytime you have to be just big, old, pregnant in a hospital bed, oh, was not fun. But you know what's funny is me, I'm a character. I brought my own rug. I brought my own shower curtain. I brought my own, I like made it my like little I brought like bins of stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna make this cute. If I'm gonna be here for 2 months, we cannot get me depressed. I had a little plug-in of a Yankee candle. I'm like, we can't have this smelling like a hospital in here. So you do the best. And what's funny is before I found out I had such a high risk, like the most medically intervened pregnancy you can really think of, I was considering doing like a water birth, a birthing center. But sometimes you just listen to the professionals and they've been studying it their whole life. And I said, we're doing whatever you guys tell me to do. But they gave me a room with a great view. They didn't have me in antepartum. They had me right next to the OR. They're like, just in case they told me this. They go, you're the most high risk woman on this floor. Any second you could
Wow.
be going into there. I'm like, y'all need to watch how you talk to me. I'm like, you're gonna scare me. But like, we're just telling you the truth. You got to be right by the OR. But the OR was also right by the natural delivery room that they have with like a whirlpool tub. So I was also across from the nurse's station. So for 2 months, I was listening to natural birth and then like the ding dong of like nurse's stations. I don't know how I didn't go mentally insane. I think I actually did go mentally insane. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, okay, a couple of things. I love that you decorated your room. If you're gonna be there for 2 months, you might as well be like, "This is awesome and comfortable and cute," for sure. And
Yeah.
that is so badass that you found out that you passed your bar, and I love that whole story was so incredible.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me share. Mhm.
Yeah, I love hearing all of your stories. They are so fun. Okay, so another thing that I do want to talk about is your research-based practices that you follow with raising the
Mhm.
boys.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
two of those things I think that stick out are not telling who is older
Mhm.
and keeping twins together in school. So, can you tell us more
Mhm.
about that?
Sure.
I'd love to dive into that.
I will start this first. I am not a perfect twin parent. I try my darndest. This really started because while I was pregnant, I just so happened to have watched at the time, it was like a Netflix series that had come out about the triplets that were separated like in the 70s or 80s. And then as adults, they found each other. And there was some
Hmm,
random podcast about it. And this twin specialist, Dr. Nancy Segal, was on it. And she was saying all this stuff about how some of these twin myths that we are just, you know, we take as fact because it's how they're presented in movies pop culture, and how many even professionals like don't even think about it because twins are they are their own specialty. And I was like, huh, this Dr. Nancy Segal is saying some stuff that I've never even thought about. Well, she has a book that she's written called Twin Misconceptions by Dr. Nancy Segal. I joke it's like my Bible. There's any twin topic that ever comes up, you can page through that thing, you're going to find it. And then it's all backed with scientific studies, which is the coolest
Mhm.
and best part of it. And so there's a segment on it about not telling the twins which one is older until you believe that they are old enough to understand that at the end of the day, it's a social construct. Y'all were conceived at the same dang time. You're 1 minute, 10 minutes, an hour apart. Okay. You guys are the same age. So until you
Mhm.
feel they're ready for that, withhold it. Why? Because studies have shown that parents and teachers will treat twins differently based on who is older and who is younger. It's all about like going into the nerdy stuff, labeling theory. And then the idea is how are they going to then potentially internalize that? And the argument I see a lot is like, well, you as a parent know either way. So who cares? Tell them, you know. So I'm like, well, I think there's something to be very aware of it. But Dr. Nancy Segal really recommends as parents to withhold until they're the right age because at the end of the day, you don't know how it's going to affect teachers, fellows, inter-twin conflict. Um, and you can do all kinds of anecdotal stuff about that, but just to stick with the science, is the science shows that that's the most safe way to go around the topic. I'm not a perfect
Mhm.
twin parent though. If I hadn't just happened to have come across that podcast and happened to discover Dr. Nancy Segal and all these studies, I really, really don't think I would have ever thought twice about it. I would not have,
Mhm.
because I think in pop culture, you always hear about like the funny thing on like sitcoms. Well, I'm the older twin, or I'm 2 minutes wiser, or I'm, this, that, or the other thing. And, I do hear personally, and this is the anecdotal stuff, a lot of times it's usually the younger twins, which is so stereotypical, but that's the case is that they're like, this actually was a really big deal for me growing up. Like I was always thought of like the
Mhm.
baby and this, and they were wiser. And like, even though it was a joke, it wasn't a joke and it really affected me. And so, yeah, I have chosen not to share which one's older. My husband just said, and you're a twin mom, you know all about this. My husband was just at a party the other day, and one of the dads said, "So who's older?" And my husband says,
Like, it doesn't matter.
I got very lucky because they're mano mano. That's a whole other thing. They have to take them out like this. They were literally born at 8:35 a.m. I just got lucky with that. So my husband just says, "Oh, they were born the same minute," and then people won't push past that. They're just like, "Okay," like they won't think past that. And then sometimes we'll have people push, sometimes teachers, and I will just say, "Yeah, we're not doing that." I'm like, "Oh, we're just not going to do that." Like, it's not. Yeah, we're not going to do that. And then if they really push, I'm like, let's talk about science. Like, and then it gets kind of silly.
Yeah.
But again, I don't blame any twin parents who are like, well, we didn't do that, or we think at the end of the day, you gotta do what's best for your family and your twins and everything. But I do try to I say babies don't come with a manual, but we have science as a good place to start.
Absolutely.
The much more well-researched one, which people get stickly about this one too, because it goes against every cultural norm you think about twins. There is so much research that you should keep twins together in school, particularly before, like elementary and middle school and high school, when, they do start delving off, but particularly young twins, elementary, kindergarten. There is study after study that's either neutral on the topic or pro it, which says you should keep twins together. Why? The studies show that twins kept together have less anxiety, less depression, less preoccupation with their co-twin, better math scores, and better reading scores. There is not a single
Mhm.
study out
Wow.
there, not a single study out there that is pro separation from the start. That is not to say you should never separate twins at the cost of all rational reason, right? The reasons you should separate twins, according to the science, they become such a bad class distraction. They are physically fighting and it just cannot be solved. It cannot be fixed. They ask to be separated. So there's all these things that
Mm.
even me, who is super into this idea of togetherness, this is something I reevaluate every year. How's it going? Are the boys asking to be separated? What are their teachers saying? But so far, so good. They love being together and everything. But that is the one I get a lot of pushback on. And I always say, like, hey, it's not me. It's the research. Here it is. Look it up for yourself. And at the end of the day, if your twins don't do good together, don't keep them together at the sake of all rationality. But hey, we don't come with a manual. We have all the science. It's a good place to start. And it really upsets me is not the right word, but I feel like a lot of schools are just so behind on the research. A lot of schools will mandate separation from the start. And you have to go in with
Mhm.
your little research packet and be like, "Hey, this is what the studies say. I'm very passionate about this." Even the school knows that I'm really into keeping them together. We walked into first grade and they had them in separate rooms. And I was like, "Hey guys, we gotta."
Mm.
I went to the front. I was like, "Hey, let's, remember I like to keep them together." Like, "Okay, yeah, sorry, of course." But that is a very kind of weedy topic because I think too, if you're a parent of like, let's say high school twins and you come across that, you take it as an attack. Like, well, I had my kids separate
Mm.
and they're great and they're this. And I completely understand that. My videos are really aimed for the pregnant twin mom, the twin mom of younger children. My videos are not to poo poo anyone's decisions in life. It's just to put the info out there because it's what I would have wanted to see when I had the young twins and pregnant. And that's the only reason I put those videos out there. Education purposes only, not to be, poo-pooing other people's decisions, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So my boys are 7 minutes apart, and we have told them who's older and who's younger, and quite honestly, I wish that we wouldn't have. Because 7 minutes doesn't matter. Like you said, 1 minute doesn't matter. 7 minutes doesn't matter. An hour doesn't matter. They are the same age. Interesting to hear you say that teachers are asking because we obviously they're not like in the school system yet, so we haven't experienced that. And I would push back on that. So that's interesting and something I'll be thinking about in the future because why do you need to know? Even if one is 7 minutes older, that doesn't mean that they should be getting more responsibility or, whatever comes along with quote unquote being older.
Sometimes older, they think of them as being more hard-headed or more. There's all these kinds of stereotypes that come along with it. And so I think as a parent, like now you know this. So I would say just like make sure you don't prioritize it with the what boys. If you hear them start talking like that, just say like, "Hey guys, no, cut it out." Like, don't be
Mhm.
silly with that. And then when people like teacher stuff ask, you can just say like, "No, they're the same age." Like that's what I would do.
Right.
Now you didn't ask me for my
Mhm.
advice, so I apologize for giving unsolicited advice. But that's what I would do. Just
No,
place no importance on it. That's all you can do.
mhm. Yeah. I feel like I found your page, like, maybe when the boys were 1, not that they were, like,
Hmm.
cognizant of that, but, like, I feel like it is more of a joke, but I feel
Yeah.
like it's something just to be cognizant of because it doesn't need to turn into, like, a complex as they get older.
Yes, that's
Um
all. You just be aware. And then the
Mhm.
second they start
Yeah,
getting
I
older,
love
you're gonna see when they're like 4 or 5, 6, they're gonna start nailing each other on stupid stuff, and you just have to, like, shut that one down. Because I know
Yeah.
one of my boys, he would be like and he's our let me just say, the one that is older, he would be the one to be like, "I'm older." Like, I can see it. So, yeah, you just have to and tell your family, like, "Hey, we've decided that we're gonna kind of, like, not really make that a thing going forward, blah, blah, blah," and you can explain why. But yeah, if I hadn't come across this stuff, just so happens to have come across a podcast, really wouldn't have thought twice about it. Really wouldn't have.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing to think about, and the
Mhm.
other side that we were talking about, keeping them together in school, man, that has been interesting. So, for me, like, instinctual, like, yes, they should be kept together, and they were going to go next year to the preschool that my daughter went to, so I was, like, getting them registered or whatever, and they mentioned, "Hey, just, like, our policy is to separate twins." And I was like, "Oh, well, then they're not gonna go to school here, they're gonna be, like, 3. That's so little." So then when my daughter started kindergarten, I'm like, my kids are a while from being in kinder and 1st grade, but what's your policy on twins?" And interestingly enough, the principal is a twin. Isn't that neat? And she was like, "It's completely the family's decision," which is what it
Nice.
should be.
That's what it should
Yeah,
be. I
so
agree.
yeah, so our plan is absolutely to keep them together, and then, like you said, if there is an issue, like fighting, arguing, whatever it might be that can't be handled, then we would separate them, but yeah, my gut is keep them together, so
Yeah.
I love that that's backed by research.
I know, I love when gut stuff is backed by research, and it's interesting, the state of Florida and other states too now have twin laws that allow twin parents to decide whether to keep their kids together or separate in school, and it's catching fire, I guess you could say, around the country. So more and more states are passing these twin laws because of this, like,
Cool.
old idea of, like, you must be separated to start. And it shouldn't be must
Hmm.
either way, really. I agree. Should be up to the
Right.
parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it has been so fun to chat and to
I
go over
know.
all the things. Your videos on Instagram are so awesome. So
Thank
obviously the
you.
ones that I focused on are the twin ones, but you also have super cool ones about being a lawyer and certain laws and like the health stuff that you mentioned. Before you give us more information about where we can find you on Instagram, if you could have a heart to heart with a twin mom or give a mom a piece of advice, what would you tell her?
If I could give a twin mom any advice, it would be that everything is temporary. Every stage has its pros and its cons. You're going to be okay. You will sleep again one day. And whatever it is that you are giving to them, you are doing 100% the best thing you could do. I truly believe that in my heart and soul. I think twin moms are so special and we give every single little piece of us. I still feel a little bit in the thick of it, but I've noticed now that they're almost 7, I will say I feel like I'm coming out. I'm starting to come out on the other side of that crazy toddler wild era and the sleepless nights. It's going to get better. You're doing an amazing job. And even in those days that you feel low, know that as a twin mom, you are surviving and you are, can I curse? Can I curse on this?
Yeah,
You're a badass. You're a badass. And that's all I have to say.
I love that. And that's true. Okay, so your boys are almost 7. So what do you think was the
Yes.
hardest age?
It's so funny because again, there's pros and cons to every age. Um,
Sure.
for for us, weirdly enough, they were pretty good sleepers. So the baby age was not bad. And I feel like I could watch telenovelas and they were just like sleep in my arms and I could watch whatever I could wanted to watch on TV. So it felt fine. The worst age so far, honestly, not twos or threes. It was that 4.5, 5. Because
Hmm.
they start because you're a mom of an almost 6-year-old. Because then they don't have the excuse totally of tantruming. Because, when you're 2 or 3, you're like, "Oh, they're just 2 or 3, they're tantruming." At this point, they're more cognizant of being human, and you think a little bit in your mind like, "You should know a little better by now, huh, sir?" But they're still 4 or 5. And they get smarter with it, so they have a lot of more rationality and reason while also having no rationality and reason. And so I just feel like that era is almost like, for us anyway, was like that in between of toddler and child was rough.
Mhm.
And that's also
Yeah.
where we kinda see they kinda start picking on each other more and getting into little fights more and that kinda stuff. And it's starting to really chill out, I would say in the last 6 months. And I feel like
Okay.
And I've heard from so many parents, even of not twin parents, that like the golden ages is like 7 to like 10 of that, just like they're sweet, but they're old enough not to have tantrums anymore, but they're not that preteen, the kind of stuff. So for me anyway, for me, the most angelic time was like a year and a half. I love that time. Like 2 year. It is so cute. I love it. Yes. Yeah.
18 months is my favorite age. Oh, they're just so precious. They're not like really having tantrums. And when they do,
Right.
it's like kind of funny. Like, I don't
Yes.
know. It's just very
Yes.
sweet. I totally agree.
Yes. Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
It was so fun. Okay, so where can people connect with you on Instagram? And I'll absolutely tag you in the show notes.
You can find me on Instagram or TikTok at lex.ginger. And if you're on my Instagram, click the Reels tab and you're going to get all my educational info.
She's awesome. She
Thank
literally
you.
explains twins better than medical professionals.
So sweet. So sweet.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy twin mom life to listen along. I hope this podcast shed some light on a topic that's been on your heart and gave you more confidence as a twin mama. If you know a twin mom, please send this her way. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Check out the show notes to be connected with today's guest and get discount codes for brands I love. See you next Thursday. Until then, you were made for this.